Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice for part two of our conversation with Rob. In this episode, Rob takes us into the moment that changed everything, a running gunfight as a rookie officer that would haunt him for years. That incident, combined with the lingering effects of war, pushed him to the edge. What came next was a decision most wouldn't dare to make, stepping away from law enforcement for 5 years to fully focus on healing. From individual and couples therapy to yoga and launching a music nonprofit for veterans, Rob did the hard work to reclaim his mental health. Now he's back in uniform with a renewed mission to build a crisis negotiation unit and help others who are silently struggling. This isn't just a comeback story, it's a story of purpose, grit, and redemption. If you have not listened to part one, please go back and do so. Let's get on with part two.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158.
She's like, "Did you not see that playing your guitar helped you?"
Right.
And I was like, "No kidding. It sure did." So I was like, huh. So then I got this idea. I said, you know what? There are a lot of guys who are struggling and a lot of girls who are struggling like I am. And maybe if they had a guitar, they could interrupt that process.
Mm-hmm.
So I got on the phone with a buddy of mine who is an incredible professional guitar player. And I was like, hey, dude, do you want to help me teach vets how to play guitar? And he was like, hell yeah. So it started. Um,
Nice.
I created this nonprofit, and we went to Guitar Center, and we said, hey, this is our idea. This is what we want to do. Can you guys help us out? And like 3 days after I sent that email, I got an email from the general manager, Brian Gunter, and he said, you know what, dude, I've got 8 brand new guitars I want to donate to you.
Nice.
And I was like, sweet. Like, what? So I went up to Guitar Center. We did this little thing, and he donated 8 brand new Fender acoustic guitars. And I started teaching the veterans at the labs. Started teaching them how to play, and I didn't know what I was doing. Right, I just started learning, but I had my buddy who did know, so we were trying to work through that, and then it evolved into a full on nonprofit. And by the time I left, I think we'd given out over 60 guitars to veterans across the country, a lot of them here in New Mexico. And we were holding lessons once a week.
Yeah.
And it was just a really cool way for me to give back to my community when I was needing it the most. I was really struggling, but that gave me a focus and gave me a mission and a purpose, and that really helped me get through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly, it was like, I think it was 2017 was when I left the labs, and I stopped working altogether because I was still struggling. I was still really struggling, and I quit work altogether for 5 years. I didn't work at all, and for the first year or so, I just kind of sat on my ass, and I just did my guitar group, but that was really kind of it. And then I got into a personal therapist. And my wife and I got into a marriage therapist. Um, and then I had a bit of a spiritual awakening, and then went to um, what I call my spiritual healer. He was a former firefighter who got into things like qigong and yoga, breath work, and that kind of stuff. So I started working on my mental health basically 4 out of 7 days a week. I would, do my individual therapy, my marriage counseling, my guitar group, and then my spiritual work. Um, and so for the next several years, I did that every day. Well, every 4 of the 7 days a week
Right.
until I was back into a shape that I felt like I was ready to get back to work. Um, when I finally felt like I was ready to get back to work, I didn't really know what to do. I thought law enforcement was out the window because I stopped working for a mental health reason. Um, so I tried to become a mechanic. And so I started working as a mechanic for about a year, um, but came to a realization that being a mechanic wasn't for me. Um, I was close to 40 years old and I was making $15 an hour as an entry level technician after making over 70,000 a year working for a national laboratory with a top secret clearance,
Right.
and now I'm making $15 an hour turning wrenches. And I'm like, this is not okay. I need to do something else. So I ended up getting into security work. So I worked for a private security company here. And that was a little better. It bumped me up to like 26 an hour. Um, but the benefits are trash and the job sucked. Like I used to make fun of guys like that who are standing in Walmart thinking they were cops and they were just high paid Walmart employees, basically. You know, a lot of those guys were, really gung ho about security work because they either wanted to be a cop or got fired from an agency for something else,
Hmm.
and could no longer be a cop. Um, so you're dealing with a lot of difficult personalities. Um, and for a while, my main job was to stand in the entryway of Walmart for 10 to 12 hours a day. And that was a big hit to my ego. Um, I felt like I was capable of so much more of than just standing in a Walmart. You know, uh, I I was ashamed that I was doing that work, and not to hit on anybody who does that work whatsoever. It just for me, it was such a step down from what I had done previously, um, in my eyes at the time, and it was just it was difficult to keep doing it. I eventually moved to their patrol unit, so I got to have a take-home car, and I would drive around these neighborhoods in a car that looked like a cop car, and I was in an outfit that looked like a cop outfit. I carried a gun. I had all this stuff, just like a cop. But my job was to sit in front of somebody's house for 30 to 45 seconds and then move to the next person's house, and accomplish a whole lot of nothing for 12 hours. Um, and I knew I was meant for more.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying. I was meant for more. Um,
Yeah.
when I realized to get into security work, I had to pass a psychological eval anyway because I had to carry a gun, and I passed it. Um, I started thinking maybe I can get back into law enforcement. And I brought it up to my wife, and her first response wasn't no, it was fuck no. I want nothing to do with being a cop's wife again. And I understood it, but I didn't. Um, you know, it was the best job I'd ever had in my entire life. And it was the one that made me feel the most fulfilled. It made me feel like I was worth something. Um, and I was good at it. And
Right.
I didn't understand why she wouldn't want me to do that. We had a lot of heated discussions over it, and I understood. Like she explained it to me very well, right? The job of a law enforcement officer's spouse is not an easy one.
Right.
It's probably just as difficult as being the law enforcement officer itself because your life is filled with anxiety. You never know when that phone rings if it's going to be me on that phone or my boss or my partner. If it's me, I'm either telling you that, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late again. I got held over. I don't know what time I'm going to be home. Or it's, hey, I'm hurt, but I'm okay. But here's the hospital that I'm at. Come see me. Right. Or if it's my boss or my partner, it's, hey, Rob's really hurt, or Rob's not coming home. So anytime that phone rings, she's preparing for a conversation she doesn't want to have,
Right.
you know? And that's why I rarely call her from work unless, sometimes it's something cool happened and I'm like, hey, this really cool thing just happened and I just had to tell you and I didn't want to text it because it was a lot and I just want to, share that conversation with you. And she's really great when I make those calls. She gets really excited to hear about it and she tells me, I'm excited to hear about it. I can't wait to hear more when you get home. But it's the other calls that set her up for anxiety and fear. And um, so I get it. I get why she didn't want to live that life again, you know, but she made that sacrifice and let me do this job again. So January of last year, I went back into the police academy because I'd been out 10 years.
Mhm.
So my certification had lapsed. So I had to go all the way back to the police academy. So I went through the police academy again. She sacrificed a lot to have me go through that academy. She really had my back. When I first went through the academy, I was going through a divorce. So I had no support from my ex-wife while I was going through. I ended up moving in with my parents during my first academy. So they were my support. But this time I actually had someone at home who loved me, who supported me, um, through all the nights of getting home from the academy, spending 2 or 3 hours doing homework, then spending another hour or two ironing my uniform and shining my boots and getting all my stuff laid out and repacked for the next day. And then
Mhm.
back to the academy early that next morning. And she had to handle the whole house while I was gone through all of this, and um, that was a huge difference. And I really excelled in the second academy because of that kind of support that I had, and that kind of love and the motivation to get through it and provide for my family again. So I got through that academy, and then the day after I graduated that academy, I lateraled out to another agency where I'm at now, and began my life as a deputy sheriff instead of a police officer. I
Right.
always wondered what sheriff life would be like. And it is very different than that of a police officer, that's for sure. The types of calls we go on are very different. The number of calls we go on are very different. I went from working at the biggest agency in the state and the busiest agency in the state to now I work with 5 other deputies and 2 sergeants. And, there may be days I take one call in the day,
Right.
and that call may be shooing cows off of a highway, which is a very different type of police work than I was used to.
Yeah,
But
we just had that
it's really
here
cool. I'm
a little
sorry.
while ago. We just had that happen here in Kentucky not too long ago. There was cows on the main interstate.
Yeah, yeah. But so it's different calls, but it comes with its own different risks, right?
Yep.
My backup, my backup could be an hour away running code when I'm at a call. That's very possible. Whereas when I was with the city, the most I would have to wait would be 2 to 3 minutes, and somebody was there. Now, like I said, it could be an hour before someone's at my side, and they're running lights and sirens with the pedal to the floor. Um,
Right.
you know, it's a very different style of police work. Um, you know, everybody has rifles where I work. The whole
Right.
community. It's a very rural community. They all have rifles. It's not like the city where most people, if they carry a gun, it's a handgun. Um, no, these people have 30-06s, 308s, ARs, um, everything you could imagine. to put down any size of game, and I've got to be ready for that. So I wear rifle plates in my body armor that are made to take large rounds, for that reason, and I wear them. I'm not going to mess around and not wear rifle plates where I work.
Yeah.
You never know what someone's intentions are. You never know what someone's going through. So you never know their level of desperation, and desperation kills, you know.
That's for sure. I know that from experience.
Yeah.
You know what happened with Billy. So losing my cousin and stuff, it was kind of hard. Uh, how his wife found out was she had just got done because she's a nurse and she's also works at the hospital as a psychologist. So she goes to the jail and administers medications to the county jail. And she had gotten off of work and relieved the babysitter. And she said she kept getting a call, but every time she'd answer it, it would drop. And a few minutes later, her charge nurse at the hospital called and said that she needed to get to the hospital just after she seen on Facebook that shots were fired and an officer was down. Her charge nurse at the hospital had called and said, "You need to get to the hospital right away."
Yeah.
So she left the kids and called the babysitter to come right back. And she lives by the hospital, so it didn't take her very long. And Billy had been without oxygen for 23 minutes. And he's he's a fairly big guy and he's very tan, not like me. I got the white skin. He's got the beautiful tan skin. You know, I have to go out in the sun and bake for about an hour just to get tan, every
Hmm.
day. But he's got that natural tan skin, and she said that he was very pale. And the first thing that she said to the doctor was she was going to have to plan a funeral, and that was hard for her to accept. And before the kids could see on Facebook, because that's how she saw it. She didn't want them to see that on Facebook and then have somebody say, sorry about your dad. She contacted the babysitter and said, bring him to the hospital immediately. So they got to see their dad in the hospital, and he was already coded, which was sad. You know, uh, he was
That's
a great officer. He was an excellent deputy. He loved law enforcement. He loved law enforcement more than military, and he was always happy to be at his job. He always had a big smile on his face. That was his dream. He loved helping people. He loved stopping into the stores and checking on people, seeing how they were doing, how their day was going, that kind of thing. I mean, Hillsdale's not like a super big town, but it is fairly good size.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a huge loss, not just to us, but to the community and his friends.
Yeah.
He knew a lot of people. He grew up there. You know, he was born in Oakland, but he was raised in Hillsdale. He went to
Yeah.
school through Hillsdale, knew a lot of people. So it was definitely a huge loss. And I think that, in my mind, if he would have continued with that, I think he would have been an outstanding sheriff.
Yeah.
He would have been a really good sheriff for that county. But yeah, it was just sad. And seeing the funeral and how they handled the funeral, it was hard, but yet it was inspiring to know that he was guarded and nobody left him there by himself. He had armed
LEO
guards.
funerals are different.
Yeah.
I've been in a few, obviously, and there's nothing else like them in the world. I mean, other than a military funeral, they definitely have their similarities there.
Mhm.
But the one thing the military doesn't have that our LEOs and our firefighters have are those escorts.
Yep.
Those things are a sight to see when a firefighter or a cop goes down, and you have miles long streams of firefighter and cop vehicles with their lights and their sirens going, and people on overpasses, um, giant American flags, and the
Hmm.
support from the community when one of us goes down. When you see that in person, you realize that the stuff they tell you on the media about how much people hate law enforcement, um, when you see that in real life, you kind of go, really?
Yeah.
Because the support I've seen from this community when an officer goes down surpasses anything I've seen going another
Yes.
way,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about it. And I hope that if that ever happens to me, where I go down in the line of duty and I end up with one of those funerals, my family can feel some comfort in that, you know,
Yeah.
that display when all of those sirens are going off, it sounds like the community itself is crying, those
Oh
that
yeah. You can hear
wailing from those sirens feels like the community is crying. And as cheesy as that sounds, it's a comfort for the family to know that they're not alone,
it. Yeah.
and that's what I think the family gets from those displays, is that feeling that, look, I'm going through something pretty terrible, but I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by thousands of people who support me
Hmm.
because of what my loved one did for a living,
Yeah.
and not a lot of professions get that level of respect when they die.
Exactly. Yeah. I recall everything that, we had officers pretty much from all over the country show up,
Hmm.
and the level of support that they showed, and not just from the LEOs and the fire departments and the EMS and stuff. Uh, it was probably about a mile and a half to 2 miles from
Yeah.
Hillsdale College, where the cathedral was, where the funeral was. Uh, he had an escort of all the officers, bikers, military veteran bikers, just a
Hmm.
line of people escorting him. And we, as the family, we all had to get on the bus, and we got on the bus instead of driving our own vehicles. And we seen, just like, on both sides of the motorcade were just lines of people with signs and holding their hearts and crying and waving the flags, and just signs of support. And it was just an amazing feeling to know that he was
Yeah.
loved that much. And the spot where he was buried, it was a pretty clear open field, because I think Sarah had bought that whole plot. She just
Oh
bought the
wow.
whole for the family and stuff. And there was the guards, National Guards, sheriff's deputies, and officers from all over the country that were there. And it was probably like a half a football field full of uh, his fellow guardsmen and officers that just flooded that field during the funeral. And that was just
Yeah.
an amazing feeling to know that he had that much love and respect.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that, they do the 21 gun salute and all that stuff, and I expected that coming, but it still, when it went off, it jolted me.
Yeah.
You know,
Me too. It gets me every time.
I
Even though I
knew it
know
was
they're
coming.
coming, I still
It's,
jump with every shot.
uh, I think the hardest thing that hit me the hardest, not just seeing Sarah get the flag and all that stuff in honor of him. Uh, the hardest thing for me was seeing my uncle Bill. He was a veteran himself. He was in the Navy during Vietnam, and seeing him stand up and saluting his only son, and it's supposed to be the other way around. You know what I mean? Your parents are supposed to go
Yeah.
first. And fortunately for my aunt is my mom's sister. My uncle Bill is, he's my uncle by marriage. He's more of we see each other more of a father-son aspect.
Hmm.
He sees me more of a son than a nephew. Him and I are closer than I am with my own dad. Him and I have a lot more in common than my dad. So him and I get along awesome. And
Good.
but just seeing him stand up and salute Billy, it just broke me, you know. And I just think it's supposed to be the other way around. This is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, parents should never have to bury their child. That's
No.
one of my biggest fears in this.
We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most.
World is having to
Right.
bury one of my children.
Yeah.
My two kids are my life, and they're one of the reasons I do this job. Because like I told you, when I was a security officer, I can't imagine when my kids' friends asked them, hey, what does your dad do? Oh, he's a security guard. That they felt any real sense of pride,
Mhm.
But what my kids feel with me being a deputy it far surpasses anything I could imagine. I
Right.
always tell myself my mantra is to live up to the hero my kids think I am, because I'll give you an example. My daughter just had prom a couple weeks ago, and her wish was for me to take her to prom in my unit.
Oh my gosh.
And she wanted me to pull up to the prom in my unit, turn my lights on, hit my sirens, and then play the Bad Boys theme song over my PA as we pull up.
That's awesome.
And that's exactly what she got. And I was in my full uniform. I had my black cowboy hat on
Yeah.
in my duty uniform. And we pull up, I hit the lights, I hit the sirens, and I played the cops theme song over my PA as we pulled up. And she was like, just before that happened, she's like, Dad, my heart is pounding. I'm so nervous. I'm like, it's okay, kid. It's gonna be fun. And that's what I love. Like, that my daughter for her senior prom was so proud of me that she wanted to show that off to the whole school. She wanted
Right.
everybody to see it. My
Right.
dad's a cop and I love him for that,
Right.
and that felt great. The first day at school this year, both of my kids asked me to take them to school in my unit, just
Right.
to have me do it,
Right.
just to show off their pride for their dad.
Right.
And like that's one of the reasons I did it, because now my kids really can be proud of what I do and not have to tell people I stand in Walmart for a day, for work. And then they're like really proud of what I do. And
Right.
it's not that that's the only reason they're proud of me, but I love that they have that.
Right. Yeah, they definitely love and respect that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a rare situation. I know a lot of kids might be embarrassed, but that's awesome that your kids are supportive and love the fact that you do what you do. And they're
Yeah.
proud of that.
Like my
Like my
wife,
wife,
she
she,
she went to a very rough high school here, and her dad was a cop her whole life. He retired after 30 something years. He actually retired twice. Retired once, did some other work for a while, came back to the police department, did another 15 years, retired again. Um, but she went to a very rough high school where, letting anybody know that you're a cop's daughter could probably get you hurt. So
Yeah,
she actually would never want her dad to do something like that.
yeah,
Um, we moved to a nicer part of town on purpose, and we did that with intention. And my kids can proudly display that I'm a law enforcement officer without worrying that their life may be in jeopardy or their physical health may be in jeopardy because of what I do for work.
right.
But some kids have that worry, and it sucks because it's such a point of pride for our family. We're a proud first responder family.
Mhm.
We love what we do. And now my daughter is going to be going into the nursing field. She wants to get into that when she graduates. So she's going to start her her college classes for that stuff as soon as she graduates next month.
Nice. That's awesome.
And my son, he's 14, so he's still got plenty of time. So he's he starts high school next year. So we haven't quite figured out what he wants to do yet.
I imagine
My
he's
kids are
probably
my
going to
life.
want. Yeah, he's going to
I'm
want to
sorry.
follow your footsteps. He's going to want to
I
follow
don't
your
know if he
footsteps.
would.
You think so?
He's a little different than me.
Oh,
He has some different interests that are very different from mine.
okay.
He's kind of nerdy. He plays in the band. He likes playing Dungeons and Dragons, and
Do you do
um,
that?
yeah. So I don't think law enforcement he would ever be interested in that kind of career field, or the military like I did. Um, I think he's going to be more along art and music kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
He's very talented. He's learning drums,
Oh,
loves
sweet.
drums. His instructors tell him how good he is at them, even though he's only been taking lessons for less than a year. Um,
Wow.
and he's been in band, and he's going to go into band in high school. So he likes to draw. He likes to sculpt with clay.
Mhm.
So I really feel like he's going to be more of a creative, more of an artistic kind of kid, and
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I really envy that, because I draw stick figures, bro. Like I'm not an artsy guy whatsoever. The art I do is music. I play my guitar,
Yeah.
um, but I don't even write my own songs. I play stuff other people wrote. So
Oh,
I'm not even that creative when it comes to art. The only artsy thing I do now is my side hustle, which from my TikTok is Shields of Honor 3D.
yeah.
So I 3D print oversized badges for law enforcement and first responders. So like here, so this is one I just finished. So this is for Valencia County here in New Mexico,
That's
right?
pretty awesome.
So I make things like this. So I made a bunch of these for Albuquerque police. And here's like a detective badge for Albuquerque police.
Hmm.
So
Awesome.
that's my side hustle. That's the creative artsy I get. But I'm not all that artsy because I hire somebody to create my designs because I can't freaking do that stuff, man.
Okay.
I hire somebody to make the design and then I just print it. But people love them. And that's actually the whole reason I made that TikTok account was to sell my badges.
Right. And how much do those generally cost?
So for a new agency, I charge like a $60 setup fee to cover the cost of that file to get made. And then I
Hmm.
charge about $40 per print.
Okay.
But that's been going good. I think I've sold like 80 something badges to Albuquerque police. I've sold to several sheriff's offices around here. I'm actually printing right now a couple badges for a sheriff's office in Nebraska. I've printed for an agency in Oregon, kind of all over the place. So it's really cool, and I'm hoping that it starts to grow quite a bit. I'm about to do a border patrol badge.
Oh,
I've
nice.
done FBI, so yeah, I've hit several law enforcement agencies, and these guys really love the product when they get it, and it's unique. You can get wood, you can get metal badges, but nobody's ever seen a 3D printed badge before, and the oversized replica that they get to hang on their wall is it's pretty unique and pretty special. And like I was telling you, I wanted to do your cousin's badge, so um, for you doing this interview with me, I was going to make your cousin's badge for free. So you can,
Oh, wow.
when you get a chance, if you can send me a good high quality photo of his badge, um,
Okay.
I will get one made for you.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, I'll see if um, Sarah can send me any pictures, close-up pictures of his badge.
Okay.
Uh, this is kind of like similar to what it is,
Okay.
uh,
So it's a
except,
star.
yes, the star. I know they had a
Okay.
circle around it, but they just did a basic star because that's what it is. And then 8158 was blue, the blue and the thin line or whatever.
Yeah. So this is actually my badge.
Right.
So this is that's actually what started the whole thing. So I was kind of bored one day and I was like, man, I don't know what to print because we just got this 3D printer and we were just playing around with it. I was like, man, I don't really know what to print. I was like, I bet I could print my badge. So
Yeah.
I hired somebody to create the file and I printed it, but I printed it like badge size.
Right.
But the problem was all the middle was just mud. Like you couldn't see
Yeah.
any detail. It was just bumps and mud. And I was like, well, crap. Well, that didn't quite work. So I was like, well, what happens if I blow it up? So I blew it up to this size. And I was like, hey, that actually looks really freaking good.
That's look pretty
So I
awesome.
posted on Facebook. I'm like, hey guys, look what I printed. It was really cool. And then I started getting messages. Hey, can you print my badge? Can you print my badge? And I was like,
Right.
yeah, I probably could. So then I had a guy who was interested in them. He's like, hey, I'll buy the file for Albuquerque police and you can make me a badge and then anybody else who wants one. So I was like, cool, I'm down. So he bought the file, I had it made, and then I posted it on this group, Facebook group that I was in, and ding, 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 ding. Everybody started hitting me up. I'll take one, I'll take one, I'll take five. I was like, dang, all right. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, shoot, man.
That's
So I was
good.
like, after I started printing and I had over 80 orders, I was like, maybe I need to turn this into like a legit business so I don't get in trouble with the IRS or anything.
Right.
So I made it a legit business. It's an LLC. I got all my tax documentation and everything done, and now I'm like a real business.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So it's called Shields of Honor 3D LLC. So you can find me on TikTok or Facebook. I'm even on X, but I don't really post much on there. But I was trying to figure out how to promote it, so I thought everybody has an X or Twitter or whatever. So I created a page for that.
And you're on Facebook,
Yep.
Instagram too. Okay.
Not Instagram yet. I will get on Instagram, but I'm 42 years old, man. I don't know how to do all this social media stuff. Like when I was growing up, it was MySpace and Facebook, and that was it, man. And I was too old by the time Instagram came out. Instagram was for like teenagers and 20 somethings when it came out, and I was already in my 30s. I'm like, I'm not doing Instagram. Like that's weird.
Yeah. It's been a learning curve for myself as well, because
Yeah,
I'm 47. So
yeah. So
all
us
this
old
whole
guys, man, we don't know what the hell we're doing. We're flying by the seat of our pants with this social media thing, you know?
Yeah. That's why I love Brienne. She's a tech whiz.
Oh,
She figures
nice.
it out. You know,
Yeah, my
she's
wife helps
she,
me out a lot too. She'd be like,
yeah.
"Hey, you need these hashtags. Make sure you
Hmm.
put these in
Yeah.
there. This
Yeah.
is how you do that." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So it'll get you
Yeah.
a bigger reach. I was like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah. That's what I have her. That's why I have her as my productions manager, so she can handle all that.
Yeah,
uh, so I was going to go back to some questions here.
sure.
You're working on creating a crisis negotiation unit. Uh,
Yeah.
what sparked that vision?
So, when I was a cop with the city, uh, I quickly discovered that I had this knack to reach people who were in crisis. Um, I had the emotional intelligence to understand, to be able to meet people where they're at, um,
Hmm.
and it became quite a tool for me in an asset. Um, and it was to the point, especially with my veteran status. We come across in New Mexico. I think New Mexico has like a 10% veteran population, which is one of the higher um, veteran populations in the country. Um, so when we would have mental health calls and it involved a veteran, my partners would often be like, "Hey, Rob, I need you to back me up on this call. We've got a veteran in crisis." And so cool. I would I would back them up, and I became their go-to especially when there was a vet that was in crisis, um, because our goal in law enforcement is to resolve the crisis with no one getting hurt. You know, but we as law enforcement officers, we're not that equipped to handle some of these crises and someone not get hurt, right? Because we don't have a medical degree or a psychology degree or a way to understand what's fully happening with someone who's in a mental health crisis. Um, that's why a lot of jurisdictions have really put an emphasis on what they call their CIT program, which is their crisis intervention
Hmm.
team, right? So a lot of agencies have really put a focus on creating CIT teams. Um, uh, my agency now doesn't have anything like that. So when I got here to this agency, um, I realized that there was a gap. And the gap was we have a lot of mental health calls because we have a lot of narcotics use. Um, People think that's a big city problem, but it's also a rural county problem. People who live in these small towns, there's not a lot to do, and there's not a lot of resources when you're struggling. So they turn to self medication, and that self medication, often only exacerbates the mental health crisis they're dealing with. They just don't realize it because it masks it for a period of time.
Right.
So they spend days and weeks and months masking the thing they need to fix, but they don't have the resources to fix it. So they'll steal from people, they'll hurt people, they'll do whatever they need to do to get that thing that will help them mask what it is they're not quite ready to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's really what I've seen in my experience where addiction truly comes from for a lot of people. Not everybody, of course, but for a lot of people, it's just a mechanism to mask the struggle they're not ready to cope with yet,
Right.
or the multiple struggles they're not ready to cope with. I learned from my own mental health journey that each problem takes time to address. And when you live an addict lifestyle, you tend to stack problems because not only are you dealing with your underlying mental health crisis that led you to that solution in the first place, you're now dealing with the moral injury of what you were willing to do to keep getting that.
Hmm.
And that's where my heart goes out to these addicts who I know, had they not had this particular problem, wouldn't be struggling the way they were. You know, they wouldn't be doing the types of crimes they're doing because they're so overwhelmed by,
Yeah.
this pursuit to cover up what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's just, I have so much compassion because I know deep down these are really great people who just got sucked into something because they didn't have another option at the time. You know, now it's not to say that I feel guilty anytime I arrest somebody for possessing narcotics, right? Because I've been told many times by the people I arrest, hey, dude, that arrest saved my life. You sending me to jail that day was my rock bottom. That's what made me go, you know what? I don't want to live this life anymore. And I got help.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. My older brother, he was in the Marine Corps, and he was medically discharged. He got hurt, but very smart guy. You know, he, living in Michigan. You know, they legalized uh, medicinal. At that time, it was medicinal marijuana use, and
Hmm.
he would grow for people, and he did really well at that. He was really good at it. You know, he found his love, he found his passion, and he wouldn't sell it, his stuff to the patients. He would give it to them, and
Hmm.
you know, that was what he loved to do. You know, he was pretty good at that stuff, and unfortunately, he got into other things during that process, and he got hooked on methamphetamines. Um,
Hmm.
I think a lot of it had to do with the person that he was dating, because she knew how to cook that stuff and got him wrapped up into it. And, you know, eventually it trickled down to me because he pretty much lost everything because of her. He pretty much
Hmm.
destroyed the house. He got, you know, he was renting a nice house, and he got permission to grow as much as he wanted, within legal limits. And he pretty much lost everything. And,
Yeah.
you know, at that time, I was working nights. I was driving nights for Ruan. It's a big trucking company, but we hauled out of Holiday City, Ohio for Menards. And I was driving nights. So I worked, you know, 3 in the afternoon till 3 in the morning. Um, and one morning I came home and all my stuff was gone at my house. Uh, so he had broken in my house, stole everything that I built up. You know, I had a 65-inch curved TV. Another curved TV in my bedroom was like a 55-inch. All my guitars and my laptops, everything that I worked hard to build, he took. And I knew it was him because I have a mini fridge I had in my bedroom, and it was full of Coca-Cola,
Hmm.
and all the Cokes were gone, and pictures of my mom that were hanging on the wall were gone. That's how I knew it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So, you
it's
know,
terrible. And that's like what I'm saying is a lot of these people who are deep in this addiction, they will hurt those closest to them. And um, had it been any other reason, they would have never done that. But
yeah,
that drug or whatever it is drives them to be willing to cause that kind of pain because they need to not feel what they're feeling, and it sucks whoever may be on the wrong end of that, but that's
right,
how it goes, and so that's what drove me to start this team. I want to be able to reach people who are in a crisis, provide them the resources they need to get better, and hopefully resolve why law enforcement got called to their place at the root cause, instead of treating the treating it with a band-aid, more of let's get a cure for what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the initial driver. And then, you know, I want to be able to create a better image of law enforcement within the general broader community. And the more situations we resolve peacefully, the easier that job gets.
Right. Exactly. Uh, Hopefully that works out for you. I do have one last question for
Sure.
you. Um, if someone was listening today and silently struggling, what would you want to tell them? Would you want to tell them your story? What would you like to say to them?
What I want to say is you're not alone. And that's a cliche thing that you're going to hear from, I'm sure, probably most anybody you've talked to. Um, but it's the thing that we don't realize. I've struggled in silence myself. Um,
Hmm.
there were there were nights that my family was sleeping and I was awake in a teetotal personal hell, and I would be crying. I would be hating myself. I'd be hating the image of myself, and I would be near panic attack, near who knows what, in pure utter hell.
Right.
But I was the dad and I'm the husband and I'm the leader of this family, and I felt like I needed to just handle my stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
so many nights while my family was sleeping, I was struggling, you know. Um, but what helped me was having those uh, those text lines. Text lines really are really great. Um,
Yeah.
there's several of them that are available. The VA has one. There's another one for law enforcement called Cop Line, I think it is. Um,
Okay.
there's several that are out there where all you have to do is text, man. They don't have to know anything about you. They don't have to know who you are. They don't have to know if you work for any law enforcement agency or any first responder agency. They don't have to know if you have family. You just talking, surprisingly enough, can get you through that crisis moment
Yeah.
until you can find that next step of healing, right? So what I want to say is if you're at a point where you just don't know what to do, talk.
Right.
Whatever it is, talk. Find someone you can trust and talk. When I was running my nonprofit, I told the guys there's three things that you need to survive a life of trauma. The first, most important, is a strong support network. So those are your loved ones, your mental health provider, your doctor, your pet, your friends, your coworkers, anyone who has an interest in seeing you be the better version of yourself that you can trust can be a member of that support network.
Right.
So having that support network is vitally crucial. Number
Exactly.
two is creative and constructive outlets. Creative and constructive. Those are key. Something that allows you to work through what you're dealing with that doesn't necessarily have to be directly what you're dealing with, right? So if your outlet could be writing, just write a story. If your
Hmm.
outlet is singing, find a song you like to sing and sing it. If you like to play music, play a song. If you like to draw, draw something. It doesn't have to be your trauma, it can just be something. But
Yeah.
using that creative side of your mind helps fight those feelings. And constructive. It has to be constructive. Too many people reach for destructive coping mechanisms like alcohol, drugs, pornography, sex.
Yes.
affairs, right?
Mhm.
Too many people find those destructive outlets that only complicate their life further the deeper they get into them. So, creative and constructive outlets are vitally
Yeah.
important. And the
Exactly.
third is the internal will to fight and win. That's it.
Right.
It's a three-legged chair. You need all three. You need all three because you could have all the support you need, every support network person available to you. You could have doctors, attorneys, and teams and family, everyone who's around you who wants to do the best for you. But if you don't lean on them, they don't help you.
Hmm.
You could have the highest degree of creativity ever seen in the world. You could be a magical musician. But if you don't have the desire to play, it's not going to do you any good.
Right.
So you need that internal will to use those other resources.
Okay. Yeah, it totally makes sense because, if you don't have a good support system, you're not going to be successful. You can't do it on your own.
Right.
So, I really appreciate you being on here. I think that's all the time we have left. With that being said, this is Rob. He is a sheriff's deputy in New Mexico. Um, if you guys want to reach out to him on TikTok, you can see all of his work, his 3D printing. If you're law enforcement, check it out. He's got some pretty good 3D prints of oversized badges. Those things are awesome looking.
Thank you.
So we'll definitely
And it's not
try to
just
get
for LEOs. I mean, I've done fire badges too. And
Okay.
I'm looking to
Yeah.
start doing military badges soon, as soon as I catch up with all my LEO badges. So
Okay. That would be pretty awesome, and we would definitely be looking forward to having one of those in here too.
yeah, we'll stay in touch, man, because I want to get your cousins done for you.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We appreciate that. Uh, this is Rob, everybody, on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. We appreciate you being on here. You've done an awesome job. Uh, uh, Hopefully, we can have you back on here and do another interview later on down the line and see how you are with your crisis negotiation unit.
Definitely. I look forward to it. Rico, man, thank you so much for what you do. You're an inspiration, and I truly can't thank you enough for the courage and the commitment that you have to our first responder community. It means the world, man. The support from people
Appreciate
like
that.
you makes this job worth it.
Yeah. And, I really appreciate that. I figure, you guys do so much for us. Why can't we give back? And this is how I
You
give back.
certainly are.
So that's what we do. And I promised Sarah that we would keep doing this in the name of Bill Butler Jr. So I love that guy, and we love everything you guys do for us. So
God bless you, brother.
yeah, God bless you too. You have a wonderful night and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You bet, sir. I'll see you
Yep.
soon.
All right, buddy. Good night.
All right, man. Later.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, Our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who served, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.